solution ever have a good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of government.
Yo, welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution. Today we have a very special show. This is Simply Bitcoin after all. We like to invite Bitcoiners from all walks of life. Sometimes they're very well known. Sometimes, they're just plebs on Bitcoin Twitter. And those plebs usually have some of the best takes because it's not that the well-known people have bad takes. It's that you've heard them 1,000 times, right? So that's why we invite them, because sometimes you have no idea what they're going to say, but the signal is so goddamn good. Anyways, Alex, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Nico? Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you so much for coming on to Simply Bitcoin. It's going to be a great show, but first, I have to say what's up to my legendary co-host, the legendary Optimus Fields.
Nico, it is Humble Opti. It is Humble Opti, the host. But good morning, Nico. What's up, Alex? I just want to give you a shout out, Nico. Y'all need to watch that interview he did yesterday because that was so fire. We went way longer than we thought. And it was pure signal, guys. Absolutely pure signal. It's literally a must-see. I know I'm shilling our products or whatever, but it was fire, guys. Like, everyone in the chat was super bullish. That's the content we're here for. Spreading that sound money gospel, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It definitely ran a lot longer than I thought it would. But anyways, before we start the show, today we're going to talk about how to use Bitcoin without the internet. Yes, it is possible. We're also going to continue covering the disaster of Ethereum. Ethereum, run by Amazon, regulated, run by Amazon, regulated by the US government. Oh, I forgot the tweet. It was so good, but you guys get the general gist of it. Anyways, Opti, what are we going to talk about today during the daily culture? I think this is the third daily culture.
Well, we've been getting a lot of shit for some of our sponsorships, so I am going to address some of this stuff. And then furthermore, if we got enough time, I have an awesome Eric case on thread. So we'll see if we get there. I know the news has been running long because there's a lot of news out here. But yes, I am bullish on the daily culture. I love it, man. It makes me feel good that I can talk about the stuff that I like. So here we go. And man, let's just get into this, Nico.
Let's just get into this. I'm looking for the tweet because it's such a good tweet. Anyways, I'll find it later. Let's start the show. Number time. Brought to you by NODL. They make some of the best Bitcoin nodes. Run your own version of Bitcoin Core, the Lightning Network, Whirlpool, and Dojo, all from the comfort of your own home. Remember, guys, if you don't run your own Bitcoin node, you're trusting someone else's. And if you're a digital nomad, you have no excuse because now you could run a NODL through a virtual private server. Visit nodl.eu today. That's right. And perfect episode to literally tell you the importance of running your own hardware. Run your own version of Bitcoin Core, and you can only do that if you run your own node. You could build one or you could buy one. Obviously, we recommend the NODL. It's one of the best. Anyways, so the actual tweet says, Ethereum run by Amazon, controlled by the US government. All right, just to clarify that because I had a little brain fog. Anyways, the Bitcoin price at the time of recording is at $23,365 sats per dollar, also known as Moscow time, 4,280. Block height, 749,855. Reachable Bitcoin nodes, 14,803. Blocks of the halvening, 90,145. Halving estimate, April 21st, 2024. It's coming up. Total Lightning Network capacity, 4,547.33 Bitcoin. It's an estimated value around $106 million. Hash rate, last 90 days, estimated hash rate. There's no way to actually know the hash rate. Every website calculates it a little bit differently. 206 exahashes. Realized monetary inflation, again, taking the US dollar absolutely to school. 1.78%. during the halving, that number should be cut in half. Market cap, also known as market capitalization, $446 billion with a B. Kind of want to do a little bit of...
Hold on. Before we got into that, can we go back to that realized monetary inflation? I just kind of realized that Bitcoin, even at 1.78%, is the lowest inflation rate of any money, any currency out there in the world. And this isn't even fully diluted Bitcoin, hard cap 21 million Bitcoin. Man, I don't know if all the people out there saw, but the UK has double-digit inflation, and that's them manipulating the CPI. Bitcoin is the way. Anyways, go ahead, Nico. Bullish numbers there.
Dude,
we need to make a point of this.
No, it's good that you pointed it out because that will continue to get worse. So the Bitcoin is just it shines the light of truth on everything, and it's just gonna expose the scam that is fiat currencies. Think about it this way. We are forced by legal tender laws to earn in a currency that literally steals from us. That is how the system is designed, and Bitcoin shines a light of truth on that, and it provides an alternative that can't be easily co-opted by governments, right? Which is really emphasizes the importance of decentralization. So I think you brought up a great point, Opti. Screw the fiat currencies. Anyways, I want to kind of have a throwback. This is the importance, right, of hodling your Bitcoin. Don't trade. What Odell always says, stay humble, stack sats. For our audio listeners, this is a screenshot of Reddit. And it says, this is someone who posted this 11 years ago. And they said, of course, they deleted their account. Will Bitcoin be $20 each by the end of August? If you're right, you could win 10 Bitcoin. Whoa, this is an easy bet. I take no.
Wow.
Holy crap. That's like $40,000, 240,000 USD today. The power of absolute scarcity is something that we quite don't understand yet. Anyways, I have a video for us to watch today and react to. It is from the Robert Breedlove podcast, and he brought on Caitlin Long, and Caitlin Long was talking about the importance of self-custody. Anyways, let's check out the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
Should have hit somewhere around six figures in this previous cycle, and it didn't. So why didn't it? Because there is a lot of paper Bitcoin out there that's supplying the real demand with fake supply. And what I mean by that paper Bitcoin is those are IOUs. If you added up all the IOUs from the intermediaries and then added up the total number of Bitcoin outstanding, it's 19.1 million or so. I don't think we've hit 19.2 million yet. I'll bet you that we already know, right? Because we've seen some failures, counterparty failures. We already know that the total number of Bitcoins promised to people through intermediaries is far greater than 19.1 million.
Right.
And so what happened? All those intermediaries that sold their customers an IOU on Bitcoin, the proverbial paper Bitcoin, that went to satisfy real demand. And anytime you push the supply curve out, if you think about supply demand, I did a tweet storm about this a little while ago, and someone just brought it up to me recently. So I can dig it up and send it to you so you can send it out. Anytime you push the supply curve out, leaving everything else constant, leaving your demand constant, what happens? Your price goes down. And that's what's happened here.
So, dude, it sounds like what they're trying to do, right, and this benefits the government, right, is to manipulate Bitcoin the way that they have successfully manipulated the gold market for so long, right? They have sold paper gold, right? And unfortunately, we're seeing the same thing happen here. They're just, hey, can I buy some Bitcoin from you? Sure, but I'll custody for it. I'll custody for you too. And how are you going to confirm that institution actually says the Bitcoin that they sold you? Like, how do you know that they actually have that Bitcoin? The only way to know is by taking self-custody. And this is why self-custody is so important, right? Self-custody basically tells the exchange, hey, you got to put up or shut up. And what we saw with the whole Celsius debacle and a lot of these platforms that collapsed, what were they doing with a lot of the Bitcoin that they were holding for people? They were speculating with it. They were trying to get a return on your Bitcoin. And then when the price went down, they realized that they didn't have enough Bitcoin to honor all the deposits, honor all the withdrawals. And what did they do? They had to file for bankruptcy. And I suspect a lot of these exchanges that are even the big ones, they don't have the Bitcoin that they say they do. If everybody withdrew at the same time, they would not have enough Bitcoin to honor all those withdrawals. And this is the importance of self-custody. It does two things. It protects you from the BS, partially reserved type of exchange bullshit behind the scenes. And it also kind of helps the price a little bit, right? Because if you could, it's what Caitlin Long said, if you could extend the supply, if you can make the supply longer and longer and longer, that's just price suppression. It's just going to bring the price down. Now, what she said about, the expectation of Bitcoin hitting 6 figures the last cycle, the previous cycle, I don't know about that, but I can tell you this. I think that a lot of people had really high expectations for the last cycle, and they were expecting a Bitcoin price between 100 and 200K, and were let down when that didn't happen. I think that was a combination of two things. I think that the Chinese Communist Party banned Bitcoin mining at the exact right time. You could make that argument that that's an attack on the price of Bitcoin. Attacking the price of Bitcoin is slowing down adoption, right? The price of Bitcoin going up is what attracts more people to come. That was the genius of Satoshi in the roughly 4-year halving cycle, right? So, and the other component, right, is, man, whether it's, the infamous Plan B and his bullshit ass, stock to flow, and all the chain analysis guys and whatever, everyone was expecting a minimum 100K Bitcoin. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people got super wrecked when they did a leverage long and Bitcoin only hit 69K and they were expecting 100K Bitcoin minimum, right? I think that this problem, what Caitlin Long is talking about, the rehypothecation of Bitcoin, is going to continue to get worse, not better, right? And really, the way that you protect yourself against that is taking self-custody. Listen, we can't win this revolution. Nothing will change if people don't take back their full control of their wealth, and by doing that, taking back full financial sovereignty. That's how you win the revolution. That is actually how we make change. If we don't do that, nothing will change. Anyways, Alex, what are your thoughts on this?
What are my thoughts? Yeah, well, I agree with you broadly. And I think that, oops, almost kicked the desk. I think that the interesting parallel with talking about price suppression and Bitcoin via Bitcoin future shorts or whatever, rehypothecation or whatever the suppression mechanism is, the interesting parallel is over in the precious metals community, because, you already mentioned it, that price suppression, we're sort of calling foul in terms of, those assets as well. But the curious thing about it is that it really says more about the US dollar being your unit of account than anything else, right? Is that if the unit of account in your head is still the US dollar, like that's kind of the residual of the PSYOP. And so, we talk about hyper Bitcoinization, but we don't talk a lot about what it's going to feel like to denominate everything in sats. And I think that's really key, because I believe that in a sound money, if your unit of account has shifted into that sound money, like even if there's some shenanigans going on, that ultimately you're going to get better price discovery, better free market, unregulated free market signal for different asset classes if they're denominated in a sound money. And so, you can look at the US dollar price history of gold too, which is relatively not absolutely scarce. And if you were to denominate everything in the whole universe of assets in troy ounces of gold, there'd be something useful there in that data, I believe, too. And I think even more so now that we have something that's absolutely scarce and can be transactable, on Lightning and everything. So, I think price suppression is just a subsidy. and it's sort of like a shadow peg, currency peg in a way that's being done sometimes in a really, illicit way, I guess, by Wall Street. So, it's just a question of, are they really doing it? Are they or aren't they? And then if they're doing it, how does that break? People speculate on the breaking of currency pegs all the time, and it's an asymmetric bet. You could make a lot of money if you're right at the moment when, say, the Swiss franc gets unpegged from the euro, and that's a multiple 100 standard deviation move or something that shouldn't happen. So, so speculators could definitely play either side of that trade if that is indeed happening, because it's artificial.
Yeah, absolutely. And Opti, what is the pleb perspective on this, brother?
Well, first off, I loved Alex's point about fiat maxis and people not switching their unit of account to Bitcoin. Spot on, completely spot on. And then furthermore, on the rehypothecation, I love how Caitlin Long framed this. I say it all the time, the paper Bitcoin IOUs are definitely a problem. I've been touting the same thing for a while. Like, self-custody is the revolution. Make sure you hold your private keys. Make sure you're taking Bitcoin off exchanges if you are using exchanges. And then furthermore, everyone has the memes of like, institutions are coming, the institutions are coming, the institutions are here. And it's like, yes, they are here, and they will try to rehypothecate your Bitcoin if you do not take your keys into self-custody. I would say this is a feature, but it's definitely a bug. But we know it's back to the whole idea, people in the fiat game are going to play or try to continue to play the fiat games in Bitcoin until they get wrecked. Or furthermore, until you guys do bank runs on the exchanges out there. Like, shouts out to, is it January 2nd or January 3rd on, the date of Bitcoin's creation, the Take Your Keys Day. So, as Bitcoiners, as part of the culture, we definitely try to get people to understand that self-custody is the way, that you can't use an exchange to hold your Bitcoin. But also, this reminded me of that one Hal Finney post where he talks about, in the future, there will be fractional reserve Bitcoin banks and there will be full reserve Bitcoin banks, and people in the free market will have to choose what products they want to use and what risks they're willing to take. And maybe he was saying that eventually this risk and trade-off will be a lot more upfront. But right now, we definitely know that the institutions are suppressing the Bitcoin price. We know a lot of people are rehypothecating their Bitcoin out there, and it's up to you guys to call their bluff. Take your Bitcoin into self-custody, and furthermore, they can only suppress the price of Bitcoin for so long until the DCA army and the halving takes over the supply and the demand just eats up all this money. So guys, continue to DCA, continue to stack sats, continue to spread the sound money gospel, because this is the revolution. Take responsibility for your money and stop outsourcing your trust, guys. Remember what it says in the white paper. The financial system that we currently live in is good enough, but it just outsourced too much trust. So we're calling their bluff. We know these people aren't trustworthy. We know that, hey, look, I'd like to think that I'm a noble human, but if you gave me the power to control people's money, I'm pretty sure I would also print more money. And, it's like, hey, I am not above my incentives. I understand this. I am only human. So that these people are out here trying to rehypothecate your Bitcoin, which means take your Bitcoin into self-custody. The revolution is self-custody. We say this all the time, and we're going to continue to say it forever, because that is the revolution, guys.
Boom. Exactly. Amen to that. Anyways, let's move on to the news. Daily news. Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make some of the best 3D printed Bitcoin merch, from node cases to key rings to the vents on the back of your ASIC for air management, and of course the famous 3D printed Bitcoin grenade toy, which comes in any custom color your heart desires. You want it in gold? They make it in gold. And you can take advantage of the promo code down below to get 5% off CryptoCloaks.com. All right, so today we are literally going to dunk on ETH. We're going to expose ETH, and then we're going to get into the details of how to send Bitcoin without using the internet. First of all, this is Brian Armstrong. He is the CEO of the shitcoin exchange, the shitcoin casino, Coinbase. He says sanctioning technology as opposed, and I'll tell you where the signal is, right? Sanctioning technology as opposed to an individual or entity seems like a bad precedent to me, and it should probably be challenged. Could have many downstream unintended consequences. And you're like, okay, you know, at first sight, you're like, yeah, solidarity. Brian Armstrong is standing with us. But if you scroll down, it says, hopefully obvious point, we will always follow the law. How does that apply? I'll get to it in a sec. This is ethnodes.org. Right? This is what I used a lot because I was dropping some comments these last couple days, right, where it's really been exposed that Ethereum has really already been captured by the U.S. government. And a lot of the ETH people were having such cognitive dissonance, I had to bring up the receipts, right? And this is a really good source for that, right? And you ever listen to an ETH person? If you go to network types, right? And this is the type of Ethereum nodes. Remember, Ethereum is extremely resource intensive, right? That's how they have all the smart contract capability, et cetera, et cetera. Because of that, you need it requires high hardware requirements or specific hardware requirements, most of which most people don't have at home, right? So what happens? They outsource a lot of those hardware requirements to server farms. The problem is that there's only a handful of companies that could afford to run those server farms, right? And here is the companies that are running that, and you'll recognize a lot of them from Amazon. Amazon right now is running 48% of Ethereum nodes. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 48% of Ethereum is run on Amazon Web servers. Oracle, you've heard of them. Alibaba, Google, Microsoft, more Amazon, DigitalOcean, right? I'm sure you recognize a lot of these companies. So what does that mean? That means that they're very vulnerable to capture by government. How long until the US government says, hey, Amazon, Google, Oracle, you can't run an Ethereum node that's not sanction compliant? How long until that happens? And as you could see with the Coinbase CEO, at the end of the day, they're CEOs. They want to remain in business. They're not revolutionaries. The people are the revolutionaries. And I'll get to the difference in the design between the two networks, right? Because hopefully we will always follow the law. He's the CEO of a public company. He's not going to fight the government, right? And now if you compare that with Bitcoin, this is why the fork wars in 2017 were so important. Because it was the people that rose up to the most powerful mining conglomerate at the time, which was Bitmain, and said, hey, we don't want bigger blocks. Why did we not want bigger blocks? Bigger blocks require more resources, meaning it will require people to invest more in nodes, meaning some people would inevitably run those nodes on servers. Because it's a lot easier if you just rent someone else's computer rather than running it at home. If you look at how Bitcoin is done, the resource requirements are low. It's between $200 to $300 if you want to build it yourself. If you want to buy your own node, it goes up to $1,000, $900. Try doing that with Ethereum. It will require thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, which is why you get this situation where the majority of nodes are run on giant server companies, whether that's Amazon, Google, Microsoft. And that makes them prone to capture by government. But it's not only that. Let's talk about proof of stake. I heard a lot of shitcoiners talk about, oh, a proof of stake is going to change things. No, it's not. You know who the biggest stakers are? Coinbase, Kraken, Bittrex, American exchanges that are prone to government regulation and capture. And we saw huge arguments happening on Twitter, and basically what they were talking about is, hey, the Ethereum community needs to stand up. The Ethereum community is not in the position that the Bitcoin community was in when they did the user-activated soft fork. The user-activated soft fork could only happen because the people run the Bitcoin software by running their own nodes, which is why we always advocate for that on the show. If you want voting power, run your own node. When you run your own node, you get to decide as an individual what Bitcoin software you want to run and what Bitcoin software you don't want to run. But when you outsource that responsibility to a server farm run by a large corporation that's beholden to the US government, you don't have that choice. You outsource that choice. This is why Ethereum inevitably will be captured. This is the future of Ethereum, and which is why you have me theorizing this. You have Corey Clipson also theorizing this as well. If you just use common sense, what is the next logical move? The next logical move is for Ethereum to get in bed with the state, to make sure that the state protects it with a regulatory moat, and at the same time attack Bitcoin, because they want to pump their own bags. Ethereum is not built to separate money from state. It's a scam. It's always been a scam. Now, because I'm saying that, that doesn't mean that in the short term, Ethereum can't outperform Bitcoin. Doesn't mean that. But what are you here for? What gets you up in the morning? I came here to get rich. I'm not going to lie. This is why I got into Bitcoin. But I stayed here for the revolution. I stayed here because I want to free mankind from the tyranny of central banking. That's what this is about. That's what gets me up in the morning.
Absolutely.
And only Bitcoin, through its decentralization, is capable of doing that. Ethereum will, and it's already doing that. They're already advocating for central bank digital currencies being built on Ethereum. They're already using their marketing money to attack Bitcoin's proof of work, which is what makes Bitcoin uncorruptible. Anyways, what are your thoughts on this, Opti? Then we'll
good
go ahead.
All
Alex.
good points.
Why don't you hit it first?
It was a good rant. I was
Thanks,
right
man.
there with you. Yeah. No, I agree. Do I have an echo? It's all good. The whole point of a central bank, right, is to run a currency zone, but then to kind of obfuscate that fact. And so the fact that, now we're talking about CBDCs, the people that should be really confused or worried about that, right, are the bankers themselves that are in the Fed system or in each of these currency zone management systems, because they're the ones who've been lending that currency into existence. I mean, everyone should be worried about it because of the surveillance aspect, but it's clearly a move to cashless society worldwide, and that's really bad for liberty. I think that's just categorically bad for liberty. And it's a little ironic with Bitcoiners to kind of tackle the cashless subject, because obviously we want Bitcoin to be cashless, but we also want it to enhance liberty everywhere it touches, everywhere in the world. The way to do that is to make sure there are crossovers to completely anonymous cash equivalents and cash. I mean, the idea of having your seed phrase on a metal plate is physical, right? And so that feels like cash. And Open Dime is a little physical, a bit of Bitcoin. So that feels sort of like cash. I think that there's a lot of good ethos in the community toward resisting cashless society nonsense.
Absolutely. And that's the key, right? Is that fine, they want to move it to cashless society. At the end of the day, they're the ones that control that money, right? What Bitcoin is, it's like, listen, we're just going to opt out completely of your system. You want to take it to this dystopian, vision of the future where these central planners control every single move you do. And now they're going down the bit of, now you can't eat certain foods because, carbon and all that BS. Yeah, Bitcoin is the way out, and which is why we always say on the show, and we're going to keep saying it till the end of time, until they take us off the air. Bitcoin or slavery. Anyways, Opti, what's up?
Yo, Nico Jones in full effect. Let's go. First off, shout out to Jeff Bezos, the true owner of Ethereum. 48% of ETH nodes running on AWS servers. Amazing, amazing. Imagine being a part of the pseudo decentralization theater art that is Ethereum and shitcoins. And then this reminded me.
I thought it was a joke.
Right?
When I first read about Ether, yeah.
All right, exactly. So
realize.
this reminds me of the tweet that I put up yesterday by Bitcoin is Saving, and it was the idea. Yeah, oh my God, shout out Jeff Bezos. Yeah, he's laughing all the way to the bank. Anyways, this reminds me of Bitcoin is Savings tweet that I mentioned yesterday about Bitcoiners bullying an OFAC compliant company and ETH heads, meth heads just crumbling to the OFAC compliant. So to all you ETH guys out there, win OFAC compliant nodes, because we know that's coming soon. And then furthermore, you said something on the lines of when will ETH align with the state? And I will just double down and say that ETH is already aligned with the state. Look at who is backing ETH. Look at who they're partnered with. It's pretty clear. Follow the money and you will see what is happening. And then furthermore, Nico, I'm not the biggest fan of the meme of voting power with your node, but I do understand what you're saying, that choose your rules. And that is what is going on here, guys. Vote with your pocketbook. Use a node. Don't just run a node. Use a node. Verify your transactions with that node, because then you know you're actually using Bitcoin and you are on the Bitcoin network. And then furthermore, I will also double down on the meme, guys. Came for the money, but stayed to fix the money. This is just the normal, one of the normal Bitcoin feedback loops. Number goes up, people get caught up in the FOMO, and then they start to double down in education. They go farther down the rabbit hole, and then they realize there is no going back to the fiat system. I don't understand how anyone could become a Bitcoiner, how anyone could get fully orange pilled, and then they go back to the fiat system. It's literally that scene from The Matrix where the guy, you know, unplugs and he's eating the steak and he's like, man, I know it's fake, but it tastes so good. Like, I can't in my right mind see a Bitcoiner really go back to the fiat system. Like, there is no alternative, guys. We say this all the time. Bitcoin fixes this. Bitcoin is hope. And that's why we do what we do. But furthermore, I'm going to double down, guys. A push to a cashless society, in my opinion, just means a hyper-Bitcoinized world. I have faith in humanity as these totalitarians and these authoritarians double down on making sure that you are tracked, bagged, and compliant. People will find the escape door, and that escape door is Bitcoin. So as much as I am concerned and worried about these totalitarian and these authoritarians trying to push society to a cashless CBDC type system, we have Bitcoin, and people will escape into Bitcoin because no one in their right mind wants to be chattel. Like we say it all the time. It's Bitcoin or it's slavery, and this isn't even hyperbolic. It's literally in their rhetoric. They want to control you completely. They want to make sure that they can shut you off society if you have wrong think. They want to make sure that you can't even save money. This is absolutely disgusting anti-human behavior. They're stealing your life force, and they know it. These parasites at the top, shouts out to Pravina, I'm stealing that meme, want you in total control. It's absolutely disgusting. This is why we Bitcoin. This is why we spread the sound money gospel. This is why we show up every single day to make sure that people understand that, yes, this is actually happening. This isn't a conspiracy. This is in their rhetoric, in their writings, but you have a solution. And the solution is Bitcoin. Remember what we were talking about with 1971 and how people didn't even know there was a problem. You know, people still don't even know what fiat means out there. But we have Bitcoin, guys. So You guys need to be louder. You guys need to be proud to be a Bitcoiner. You need to spread the sound money gospel, because there is no alternative, and who knows how long they can kick the can down the road. But if you need Bitcoin, it's already too late. You want to be prepared and saving Bitcoin, because you never know what the hell is going to happen, man. It's getting crazy out there.
It is getting crazy out there. That's right. That's right. Anyways, moving on. We have a little bit of time left to cover this. How do you use Bitcoin without the internet? That is a good question.
Nice.
So it says, imagine waking up one morning to find that the internet is down, not because the Wi-Fi has been disconnected. Instead, your government has pulled the plug. You've no idea when it'll be back online. And in the meantime, you're cut off from life as you know it, ranging from contact from loved ones abroad to paying for anything by card. Since society isn't big on keeping cash these days, and ATMs stock up only so much paper money at a time, chances are you'll have to step aside or engage in a few fistfights if you're to put a meal on the table. Since Bitcoin is itself a form of digital currency, a good amount of pre-planning to set up a transaction. But in theory, it could still operate even when conventional options are forcibly removed from the equation. Depending on the political stability of your geographical location, learning how to send Bitcoin without the internet could be nothing more than a fun Sunday afternoon science project. Then again, it could provide the way out of a tight spot one day. Now, what are those methods? This is the first one. Come 2018, there was a new experiment in town. Ingredients, Brooklyn-based Gotenna, great company, a mobile long-range off-grid consumer mesh network, and a privacy wallet, Samurai Wallet, a New Zealand developer transported Bitcoin or shitcoin from a distance of 12.6 kilometers away, entirely offline, using only a network disconnected Android phone and 4 portable antennas. This is what we're talking about, the mesh network. This is an example of the mesh network being used. The downside of that, of course, is that's a lot of relay stations, right? That's a lot of hardware. Now let's move on to the next one. This is the famous one. This is the one that NVK has pinned to his Twitter. And he sent Bitcoin through ham radio. So with Novak and Patterson's latest feature, crypto Twitter went wild. Szabo, showing that he's still a firm proponent of taking Bitcoin skyward, chimed in to congratulate the duo for a successful send-off that not even a snowstorm could stop. So what are they talking
That's
about?
So cool.
Yeah, it's really
really
badass. So bam, yeah. Bitcoin sent over 7.077 megahertz via JS8 call to Samuel Pat, right? So, and I don't know if you guys know a lot about ham radio. It bounces off the ionosphere. So a ham radio signal from India, which is halfway across the planet of where I am today, which is on the east coast of the United States, a ham radio signal from India could get here. And if I have a ham radio, I could hear their transmissions, right? So it's very long distance. And what NVK proved here was that, yes, you can send signal through radio. But what about the other alternative? The other alternative, which honestly is my favorite right now, it's the Blockstream satellite. Yes, Blockstream has a satellite or multiple satellites literally in space that you can connect to the Bitcoin network through. The Blockstream satellite network broadcasts the Bitcoin blockchain around the world 24/7 for free, protecting against network interruptions and providing areas without reliable internet connections with the opportunity to use Bitcoin. But it's not only that. Yeah. This new company, which is why I wanted to cover this today, Bitcoin without internet, now you could send Bitcoin through SMS. Now, the unfortunate part about this, right, is that it's a centralized service, but it actually makes a lot of sense, right? In Kenya, Gwatani's home, which I'm assuming is the founder of this company, he explains that topping up a phone with airtime is as common as credit card payments in the West. A report by Caribou backs up the statement 94% of financial transactions in Africa are through USSD, the protocol used to send text messages, whereas just 6% of these transactions are made via mobile apps. In sum, while there are millions of phones in Africa, they're mostly used for texting. KG has stumbled onto something that could be huge for Bitcoin adoption in Africa. And that's badass. Here's an example, some screenshots of that happening, right? Has gifted you 10,000 sats, right? And all you have to do is through text messages. And also another thing is that Bitcoin, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is text, Bitcoin is speech. So you can sign a transaction. Worst comes to worst, I don't suggest this, but technically you can do it by hand. Technically, you could hide a Bitcoin transaction in a ton of emojis, right? And you could write up a software that could interpret those emojis as certain characters, and boom, that is a signed Bitcoin transaction. Now, why am I telling you all of this? I'm telling you all of this to make the point that you can't stop the signal. You can't stop the honey badger. Censorship and tyranny and the quest for a better life to improve your living situation is the mother of innovation. People will find the way, like water going around a rock, and then over time, that water will chip off at the rock over a long time period, right? You can't stop Bitcoin. Eventually, the signal goes through. So why is this so consequential? It doesn't matter if you're living in the most totalitarian country. Let's give the example of North Korea. Now with Bitcoin, you, for the first time in your life, have the chance to own private property, even in that totalitarian state, without fear of censorship or government seizure. They would need to find out that you have that Bitcoin wallet, and they would still need to find out your seed, of course. You know, they could torture you, they could put you in a box, they could tell you that they could tell you that you're not going anywhere. Fine. A government or a nation state could definitely do that on an individual by individual basis, but try doing that to a whole country's population. How are you going to convince a whole bunch of people, hey, hand over your Bitcoin seed for your safety? And this, ladies and gentlemen, because it's so hard to stop the signal, it's so hard for governments to confiscate and redistribute wealth effectively, is why I believe this is going to completely change the relationship between individuals and their governments. And this is going to change the dynamic. And eventually, and this is the theory in the sovereign individual, you're going to start to see a customer type relationship with governments rather than the one that they have today, which is more like Russian serf. Pay your taxes, shut up, inflation is high, we're going to hire 87,000 agents just to make sure that you don't complain too much. With Bitcoin, it gives you the power to vote with your wallet and vote with your feet. And now I suspect you're going to see more and more sovereign individuals going to jurisdictions in which they're treated best. And we already started to see that a little bit with Bitcoin miners and how they, on a completely decentralized basis, following their own incentives, migrated from China to the United States looking for financial opportunity, looking for profit. And that profit, I think, is one of the best incentives ever created. And it is definitely a lot stronger than the only thing they have left, which is coercion. Anyways, Opti, what are your thoughts, brother?
Well, Nico, I'm really glad that you covered this article. Shouts out to that company, Machinkura. I believe it means money or something of the like in and I don't know what language, but anyways, I was going to cover this for the culture, but I was going to cover it in a different light. And it's essentially the signal is spreading, guys, to the places that need it first. And, you know, like a lot of people can say what they want about Bitcoin in the first world or what have you. But as we've seen, countries in the third world and individuals are adopting Bitcoin. And this is absolutely bullish because imagine just having really bad currencies and that being your only option. And then furthermore, then you have to go to the ultimate shitcoin, which is the dollar. But, you know, the signal is spreading and the people that need Bitcoin will get Bitcoin first. And those that we don't paint in good light, we'll get Bitcoin last. And this is a feature, not a bug. So shouts out to Machinkura. I think this is really awesome. I listened to a space over the weekend and super bullish on this idea. And also shouts out to Azteco. They partnered with Machinkura, one of my favorite Bitcoin companies. And I just love what they're doing. This is just absolutely bullish in my opinion. I can't wait to see this type of Bitcoin product spread out across the world because people need Bitcoin and the signal can't be stopped. So like this is I think also just a testament to what Nico always says. You know, people cannot fathom the idea of innovation and how humans can innovate and continue to route around the legacy system. And this is just another example of that, man. You know, like first we have El Salvador, now we have like Bitcoin Lake in Guatemala. We have a few more Latin American countries that are doing their own initiatives to spread the sound money gospel. And now we're continuing to do this on the African continent. Just absolutely bullish. I'm really excited to see how far this product goes and this company goes and how many users they can get. And then furthermore, just to see more people and more dominoes follow along with this kind of product or these kind of ideas. So in my opinion, absolutely bullish. I'm really glad that we covered this one. You're muted, Nico.
Your thoughts, Alex, and then we'll move on to the culture.
Sure. Yeah, I think that the whole idea of distributing it out is sort of an echo, you know, in an easy format, so text message or whatever, or having these other ways to get it over ham radio, you know, into third world countries. It's sort of an echo of El Salvador airdropping, which, as the libertarian in me, didn't like a whole lot because it's kind of like a UBI in a way, to just airdrop money, free money on people, or free Bitcoin on people. So the interesting thing that happens when you imagine suddenly a whole lot more medium of exchange occurring in a given zone like El Salvador, or even with all these little text message transactional things happening, say in Africa, is that the velocity goes up, right? The monetary velocity goes up by a lot for the sats that are actually being used to trade goods and services on the ground in the real economy. And it's not clear to me, just the economics of that, or whether or not you know, what that would do for the dollar price, right? But certainly the local currency that it's replacing, like the Naira in Nigeria or something, is going to be competing then directly against that. And so the response of governments is huge, because then at that point, they're going to see that as a direct threat to their currency, like Erdogan did in Turkey, and they're going to respond with a feedback loop of tyranny, or, you know, forcing people to do certain things. And before I came on, Nico, I was reading up about the Venezuelan hyperinflation a little bit, and, you know, Maduro even made it illegal to post the real numbers, I guess, of what was going on with the inflation and things like that. So it's so much of this currency war on the hyper local level, and a lot of these innovations that are going to push it to be medium of exchange at that local level are going to trigger governments to do more and more stupid stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Opti? Let's move on to the daily culture. Booyakasha! Daily culture. Brought to you by SwanBitcoin.com. Swan is the best way to build your Bitcoin stack, with automated Bitcoin savings plans and instant purchases, serving clients of any size from $10 to $10 million. Swan incentivizes self-custody, and they also incentivize dollar cost averaging. Spread out that risk. Visit SwanBitcoin.com today. All right, before the daily culture, I want to give a special shout out to Pacific Bitcoin's going to be the largest Bitcoin conference on the West Coast in sunny Los Angeles, California, November 10th through the 11th. Speaker list includes Corey Clipston, Jeff Booth, Dylan LeClaire, Pierre Richard, Mark Moss, Alex Gladstein, Dr. Jeff Ross, and many, many more. You definitely want to get your tickets, and you can take advantage of the promo code down below to get 10% off your tickets to Pacific Bitcoin.
All right, guys. Well, as I told you at the beginning of this show, we get a lot of shit for our sponsors and what we do. And shouts out to Swan. This is the Swan segment. So this is a tweet that we were going to comment at the beginning of the week, but we had so much good signal that we just didn't get to it. And I figured that what would be better than for us to cover it in the culture section. So I got this tweet. I'm going to read it. And then I got a couple of tweet threads that I think will make my point for me. And then we can talk about this. So we got Dennis Parker. He is quoting our clip that we did of U.S. government shuts down DeFi. Or actually, this is the whole video. And then we got a response by Basilo, and he goes, "Simply Bitcoin TV, great podcast, enjoying it. It's a bit odd by promoting Swan. Basically, you guys are suggesting to buy KYC coins, but at the same time, you want privacy, anonymity, and fungibility using Bitcoin. In terms of fungibility, KYC is the enemy, a bit controversial in general. And while, yes, I can see what people are saying, but if you guys ever heard me in the space, and I'll speak for myself, Nico, you can add on your 2 cents afterwards. I tell people very straight up, look, buy Bitcoin however you want. I am not here to tell you guys what to do with your money and with your decisions. But if you are going to use an exchange, we love Swan. They are our friends. They are Bitcoiners. They're a Bitcoin only company. And yes, I know we can get into the weeds and the nuance later, but I fundamentally believe that you just need to buy Bitcoin, whatever is the most accommodating to your life. I can't tell you what's the best way to buy your Bitcoin, but I am definitely a fan of non-KYC Bitcoin. If you can do that with your money, then by all means, buy non-KYC Bitcoin. But furthermore, in my opinion, and this idea was sparked yesterday, and I'm glad that I had someone with a lot more experience in things than myself yesterday, and I'm referencing the interview that Nico did with Lawrence and Steven. Lawrence made a point yesterday, and I'm glad that he made it, because I've been thinking this, and I just thought like, oh, I'm just naive Opti, I'm always thinking for the best, and I'm hopeful for the future. And he made a point, and I've been going back and forth in this, and I kind of just thought like, oh, this is just a dumb take by Opti. But he said what I've been thinking for a while is that the legacy system as is doesn't even have the resources to track and bag everyone in the system that control, let alone one that is completely outside of their provision and their control, which is Bitcoin. And furthermore, even if I double down on that, which we all know that the IRS just hired 87,000 agents to essentially track and bag you and make sure that you're paying your taxes. In my opinion, the whole idea of self-custody makes this all an irrelevant point. Once we have everyone on Bitcoin or on layer 2s or whatever, what have you in the future, I don't think that this even will matter. This is just part of the transition, as we always say. Yes, Bitcoin is inevitable. Bitcoin will win, but the transition is the part that we are worried about. And while you may think that I'm not being consistent in my messaging, guys, just get Bitcoin as much as you can, however you can, and then spread that signal to everyone you know so that they can do the same thing. And of course, you need to take this Bitcoin into self-custody, because self-custody is the revolution. Once you have the Bitcoin in your private keys, as far as I'm concerned, it really doesn't matter what is going on in the state tracking of it. It's like, guys, if you are a Bitcoiner, I am almost positive you are on some list somewhere for your radical thoughts. Like, I am not concerned about being on a list. You guys see my face now. Like, I've probably been on a list since I was 13 years old. It doesn't concern me. Like, I've been on rabbit holes forever on the wrong websites. I am a proud wrong thinker. So I know the concern.
Tisk tisk.
Yeah, exactly. I know the concern of it's a lot better to buy your Bitcoin non-KYC so that you aren't on these lists. Yes, I agree with this. But furthermore, not everyone is as savage and as as much of a Bitcoiner as you.
You went dark.
I know. This camera,
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, Nico, my camera
It's all
isn't
good.
on fleek today. But anyways, I am fully convinced. And yesterday, Lawrence kind of echoed what I was saying, and I'm glad he did, because he's way older than me. He has a lot more experience in this, and furthermore, he seemed to be a proud truther, which I am. Shouts out to producer Jacob. I will get a tinfoil hat in here for you guys because I think that's hilarious. But guys, I fundamentally believe that at a certain tipping point, all this is moot because they can't control the system that we have now. They do not have the resources to come to everyone's house and bring us all to jail. This is just physically and financially impossible. So yes, if you can get your Bitcoin non-KYC, I encourage it. But if you're like most people and you're trading your security for convenience, guys, we love Swan. We think they're cool people. They're awesome. Shouts out to Corey. He's been slaying people on Twitter. But furthermore, I saw this thread yesterday and I thought it fit in perfectly with what we were talking about. And this is by Ione Appleberg, and he goes, most people hodl KYC coins, clearly a possible future attack vector for the state. 100% agree, but this is where we are, guys. I'm not in some fantasy land of, theoreticals. I meet people with where they are. And a lot of people initially down their journey aren't as savage, aren't as orange pilled, aren't aware of all these concerns. And while, yes, we'd love to get them down to using Azteco or ATMs or whatever, we like Swan. They're our friends. And we think they're doing a great job. They are on the mission of spreading the sound money gospel. But how do we get out of this pickle? And of course, I'm going to show this message because he sums it up in a tweet. And this is by @L Nakamoto, and it goes, how will the state fund its attack if their fiat has become completely worthless? Who will work for them? Guys, you need to understand that the state is paid with fake funny money, paper IOUs, and at a certain extent, the person, the individual, the guy that just needs to work a job to get by will not take fiat funny money for these services, and this whole house of cards will crumble. When will this happen? I have no clue, but I know that this is going to happen. This is inevitable. And look, you guys can call this a fail on my part, what have you. I'm okay with that. But I've been saying forever, we are sacrificial lambs. We are the pioneers. We are the ones taking on the risk. And I fundamentally believe that in the future, humanity will look back at us and be like, those crazy motherfuckers. I am so thankful for the risk that they took on, because we are just trying to get Bitcoin in the hands of anyone, any way possible, because we understand that the fiat system is robbing you. It is stealing your life force and has been doing it for hundreds of years and will continue to do this unless you take back your money. The revolution is self-custody. But furthermore, I really like this comment by Wicked Smart Bitcoin, and he goes, how are we going to get out of this pickle? And his response is circular economies, mixing by default, the use of Lightning and Fediments to obfuscate transactions even further. Surveillance will get more and more difficult. Adoption continues increasing, and more privacy-focused tools are built out. And I agree with this, guys. As these privacy tools get built out, I think this is going to be a non-concern. I always say it all the time. Sometimes we get really focused on the trees and we need to zoom out for the forest. And while, yes, I understand that the state hates you and they are the real enemy, and at times, my cold storage may not be fully set up for a nation state level attack, but what is one of the protocols of privacy? Hide in a big crowd. So we are here to spread the sound money gospel to as many people possible so that we have an even bigger crowd of Bitcoiners out there. And even, I know Nico's I know Nico always does a caveat of don't break the laws, but I got to put in some toxic Bitcoin takes in here. And we got Giacomo in here, and he goes, how are you going to get out of this pickle? And Giacomo goes, mix and lie. Agreed. And then Gigi goes, mix and shut the fuck up. And he does this post of, I forget what it's called. It's like Shut the Fuck Up Friday. And it's these lawyers talking about the marijuana and if you should get caught in the marijuana industry. I put the link in the description. So if you haven't seen this video, I highly recommend you watch this video and you will get where we're coming from. Anyways, to add to this, how are we going to get out of this pickle? Is creating your own circular economies. And as Stefan Livera put in a tweet, normalize paying back your family and friends using Bitcoin or Lightning. That way they can pay fiat, but you pay them with sats into easy wallets like Moon, Phoenix, or Breeze. And this is also what I like to advocate is, guys, use Bitcoin peer-to-peer. Spread Bitcoin to your friends and families any way possible. I know you guys don't like to spend your Bitcoin, but You guys need to make sure that people are getting Bitcoin, that want to use Bitcoin, that want to save Bitcoin. And I say it all the time. The best way to orange pill people is for them to use it, to hold it, to understand that there is no middleman, that they are free, that they have personal responsibility in their money. And again, guys, you can call me naive, but I also have other people echoing these ideas. That, look at Dave Chidillo, excuse me. He goes, they don't have the manpower to go door knocking. It's a non-issue. I completely agree. And furthermore, Magoo Hodl tweet, he goes, self-custody is so much more value than you could ever imagine. And this is the message that we tell you guys. Self-custody is the revolution. And my boy Base Money Profit, the Money Tech, quoted me and said, the revolution is self-custody. Guys, I fundamentally believe that at a certain point, a certain tipping point, this all is going to be moot anyways. Buy Bitcoin however you want. Spread the sound money gospel any way possible. Do your best to give people the best upfront advice, but you got to meet people where they are. And a lot of people aren't ready to take these steps up front, and that's okay. We just need Bitcoin in the hands of people. We need people taking self-custody. And guys, hit me in the comment, hit me on Twitter if you think I'm being naive, if you think this should be Opti's fail portion. But anyways, I see that we are already running an hour in. So Nico, what's your comments? And then we'll get into the meme scores.
Dude, I don't know what it was. It was timing or something, but I'm in Puerto Rico. The power goes out. The power dropped out on me. And luckily I came back and Opti was still doing his bit. So, and it was like a second after Opti's camera failed once again. Yeah. So, the fun of doing this live. Anyways.
Are you coming to us via ham radio now? Or
yeah, right. Can you imagine the signal? Okay. So,
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this. This is a great topic, by the way, Opti, right? Look, the reality is that the KYC exchanges have the most amount of liquidity. They also have the best prices. The price you pay is that you do it yourself, and you probably put yourself on a list that they're definitely making now that they hired 87,000 agents. Now, what about KYC free? That's how most of the world works. Most of the world does that because they don't have the rails that we have in the Western world. So, BISC is a good solution. Local Bitcoins was KYC free at one point, but of course they were big enough. They eventually got captured. So again, unless it's fully decentralized, it will get captured. It's an inevitability. The people that use the loopholes to circumvent it, if it's a company, it will get captured. There will be pressure. The US government is relentless. Swiss banking in the 80s, it was so secure that they would just give you a number. There was no name associated to that account. Right? It was a private number. Over time, the regulatory onslaught, that eventually broke. And now Switzerland, it's getting to the point that they don't even want American citizens opening bank accounts there because they don't even feel like dealing with the regulations. It's gotten like that. So don't underestimate the government. They will get it eventually. But KYC-free solutions are still an option. If you're just doing peer-to-peer. If you're doing peer-to-peer, you know someone that has Bitcoin, you want to give them fiat for I don't know what reason, right? You could do it that way. Now, of course, follow the laws and regulations, color within the lines, but you get what I'm saying.
Just really feels like a if you can't beat them, join them situation.
Another aspect of this, the internet's going crazy here. Another aspect of this, right, is you could always mine Bitcoin. You mine Bitcoin, or they're going to try to do this, but they're not going to be able to. KYC free sats. Now, is KYC free sats important? Absolutely. I think it's vital that you have a KYC free sat stack that no one knows about, that is completely separated from your KYC sats, right? But you have to understand, just because they have that Bitcoin doesn't mean they can get to that Bitcoin. And that is why we always emphasize self-custody is how you win. Fine. Let's say the state knows that you bought, just throwing it out there, 1 Bitcoin, right? They know you have it. What if you sent that to a multi-sig in which the seeds are geographically separated multiple jurisdictions? They might know you have it. But how are they going to do that? How are they going to get to that Bitcoin? It's going to be very hard for them to do so. They might be able to put someone in a box, which is what the book The Sovereign Individual predicts, that as the welfare states start, they start having problems collecting more system.
You lose me again. Oh, there you go.
Am I coming in and out?
You're back.
You're
Yeah,
back.
so like the Sovereign Individual predicts, right, is that you might see abductions and people being held to ransom so they pay, the government their tax revenue, right? But at the end of the day, what is really important, privacy is important, without a doubt. What is really important is taking your Bitcoin into self-custody and then securing that Bitcoin properly through proper seed management. I really recommend multi-sig. I really recommend geographically separating your seeds, ideally in different countries, because if they do that, then it becomes very difficult for them to get your Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, what Bitcoin does is it shifts the balance of power from the government, from the state, back to the individual. It gives the individual the power to go where they're treated best, but only if you have that self-custody, only if you have that Bitcoin under self-custody. So yes, I agree. I think the whole KYC system is incompatible with Bitcoin. I think that the clash is going to be so hard. I think that it's inevitable that they say, oh, you can only run an OFAC compliant US sanctioned node because if you don't do that, you're against US sanctions. I think that this is where that's going. But if you have Bitcoin in self-custody, you move the balance of power to your favor. And there's a meme that we always talk about, which is, I lost it in a boating accident. Just because they see that your Bitcoin is in a certain address, what if you send it to a coin join? What if you send it to another address and they're like, yo, give me that. I'm like, I don't have the keys to that. The point is that they might be able to do it to a handful of people. But if you have millions upon millions of people holding their Bitcoin in self-custody, we win this no matter what they try to do, because their laws of the old system are only enforceable in the old system. In Bitcoin, they start to become unenforceable. And I'm going to give an example, and then we'll pass it on to Alex. Then we'll get to the meme review. Look, do you know the existing money transmitting laws, right? When you go to a foreign airport, right, you pass through security, they tell you, the first thing they tell you, you have $10,000 in cash. Do you have the equivalent of $10,000 in a gold bar and diamonds? Do you have it on you? Right? That's one of the first things that they ask you. You could memorize 12 words in your head. How are they going to get that effectively? How? Or let's say, fine, they take your hardware wallet. Okay. What are they going to do with it? If it's a multi-sig, what are they going to do with it? It's a useless piece of hardware. And then, not to mention all the money. I think
this is a good thought experiment, actually.
All the money that they have to spend trying to enforce these laws that aren't effective at stopping the thing that they're trying to stop. That's where this is going, right? So yes, I get it. KYC sucks. I understand your point. It's incompatible with Bitcoin. It's going to be such a hardcore clash. I'm all for it. But do you want to stack? Try stacking more than $5,000 USD, the equivalent of 5,000 USD on BISC. Try doing that day after day. You're going to pay a premium, 5 to 9%. You're going to pay 5 to 9% premium, and then, not to mention, is the liquidity there. And not to mention, you actually have to do a physical transaction, because the way that BISC works right now is you're depositing money into a bank account. And how long until that loophole gets closed with the new 85,000, 87,000 IRS agents? The point that I'm trying to make, right, is that the best protection that you have is taking self-custody of your Bitcoin. That is number one priority. Privacy, very important. Not trying to take away from it. Run your own node. I'm for that. Earn Bitcoin. Earning Bitcoin is the best thing that you could do. because that throws them off even more. It's like, oh, that Bitcoin was supposed to be meant for that person, but now it's there. It's like, this is unenforceable is what I'm trying to say. So yes, KYC, AML, it's an enemy of Bitcoin. That clash is going to happen. We're pushing for it. The right people are on it. Very smart people are doing the research. We've had entire episodes dedicated to revealing the scam that is KYC and AML. We got a KYC and AML expert on the episode to debunk how useless that system is. But you have to fight the battle with the tools at hand. And this is where we are at this moment in time. And of course, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but I think I'm entitled to my own opinion. Anyways, Alex, what are your thoughts, brother?
Sure. Well, I've racked up a few thoughts while I'm listening to you. This is why on Twitter I say pretty often, like a broken record, that no matter how passionate we are about Bitcoin, there is never an opt-out to politics as defined by any more than two people in a room. You've got politics, right? So, that's why I'm wearing my little porcupine, my little libertarian pin on my lapel, is because, the whole point of standing up and trying to fight for liberty and for something that's more authentic liberty, right, is to put forth really good ideas about how to manage the kind of necessary evil of whatever state is left over after we dismantle a lot of the BS, a lot of the bureaucracy. The whole rant that you were just on made me think, it's a you can't beat them, join them situation where the government needs to really be thinking about, wait a second, what are some, like they did in El Salvador or Central African Republic, like what are some of the ways we could actually benefit from maybe not being idiotic and totalitarian and sacrificing our core values, which is America's founding is all about really the sovereign individual, like you said. I mean, we are rediscovering our roots by discovering Bitcoin. We're rediscovering our core values as Americans, really, and realizing that there was a big mistake that was made with fiat currency that a lot of our founders warned against, that Jefferson warned against, that so that's where now we can ask the question, okay, well, what is the US dollar then? Does it reflect our values? Could it again someday reflect our values? Could we peg the US dollar, fiat as it is, to Bitcoin and to make the US dollar semi-sound again? I think that's got some possibility to it. But ultimately, there's no reason for them to spin their wheels and fight this thing. And the thought experiment that I had when you talk about crossing borders, and I live right on the Canadian border, so declaring, if you've got something of high value on you and you're crossing borders, that's definitely a thing. You can just bring, big suitcases of cash or something across borders and have that be cool, or big gold bars. But let's take something very tiny, which essentially, a seed phrase is weightless, and tell me if I'm going too long, but, let's say that there's some sort of rarity or some kind of collectible premium or value on some very, very tiny diamond or, piece of precious metal or something. And it's so small, like it's, basically weightless, like a, steel plate with your seed phrase or whatever. It's very, very small, but the value is through the roof, right? And so if you're crossing a border with something just because it's got a huge value, but it's basically weightless, the whole threat that represents is completely imaginary, right? You'd have to liquidate the thing for the currency. It would be the local currency if you were liquidating it anyway. So it's a completely imaginary threat to that economy. It's not like you're crossing with, I don't know, apple maggots and infecting their local orchards or something. There's just nothing there that's going to be problematic. If you're a dual citizen and you're moving into that country, you liquidate it for their local fiat, this thing of high value, you're going to pay tax in theory on the liquidation into their local fiat. So, I mean, it's just, obviously they want to prevent I guess, terrorist financing or all this money laundering and all this stuff. They want to come somehow have on an international scale this ability to track flows of assets across borders or something. But it gets into a zone of just ridiculousness. So yeah, they can't fight it all. And there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it.
Absolutely. The existing regulations become unenforceable on, and then just kind of add into the mix. Opti, let's skip the meme review today because it's a good conversation. We'll go straight to the software release. But the laws of old just become unenforceable under a Bitcoin standard, right? I think that when more and more people wake up to the fact that, why am I earning in dollars? Doesn't make sense. Why am I earning in a money that's constantly being devalued? Why is that? The only thing they really have on us, and that's until Bitcoin starts to get into the very, very high numbers, and then you'll start to see less and less volatility, is that they could make the case at this moment in time is that in the short term, fiat provides better stability than Bitcoin. And stability, when it comes to pricing things, is pretty important, right? Because if not, you'd have to change the things all the time. Bitcoin is pretty volatile. But the thing is, if you start zooming out on a 2 or 3 year time scale, fiat goes down, Bitcoin goes up like that, right? So, I mean, that's really the only thing they have left. That's the only thing they're clinging on to. And there was actually a Fed tweet that was literally talking about how Bitcoin was too volatile. But if you even use their own metric and you zoom out, even with their metrics, you can call bullshit with their tools, right?
Is that the one where they were pricing eggs and sats?
Yeah, eggs and sats,
sats,
dude, and then they got absolutely wrecked, right? So, but yeah,
you got to respect that they didn't turn off the replies. I mean, at least they or did they?
They're so disconnected, and like, look, let me pull it up. Check this out. This is priced in Bitcoin, one of my favorite websites.
Yeah, I love that.
Right, here's eggs, and this is what I was talking about, right? On a year basis, yeah, maybe you're right. It's too volatile, right? Mm-hmm. But on a 3 year basis, eggs are 27% cheaper. On a 5 year basis, eggs are 74% cheaper. This is with all the inflation. This is with all the money printing. And this is still with Bitcoin 70% down. And eggs are still 75% cheaper. And that's why Bitcoin is the best savings technology the world has ever seen.
The real irony of that is there are hardly any Bitcoin denominated zones in the world. So by their own definition of price level, inflation, deflation, so they cause the price of Bitcoin to go down. Well, there are hardly any geographic zones that denominate goods and services in the real economy in sats. So they could say, oh, well, those areas now have inflation. Which areas? There are hardly any, right? And even El Salvador is not really sats denominated. El Salvador is a dual currency country. It's mostly dollar denominated still.
That's why they did it. They did it because
their dollars got stronger.
They didn't have their own. They didn't control their monetary policy, so that's exactly why they chose something like Bitcoin. But anyways, Opti, let's move on to the software release. Bitcoin software release. Brought to you by CipherSafe. Don't be that person that stores their Bitcoin seed on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage, dog attacks, everything. Your seed can be eaten by dogs or cats or animals if you store it on paper. You definitely want to store your seed on steel, and there's no better place to do it than the CipherSafe. Get yourself a Cypher wheel or a Cypher grid today. Visit cyphersafe.io.
All right, guys. Well, I'm just as disappointed as you are that we didn't get to the meme review, but I will add extra memes tomorrow. Anyways, we got Start9 Labs, Embassy OS version 0.3.1.1. Let's see, what are some of these changes? The Docker stats fix, updated backend dependence, fixed receipts health, return correct error. I'm not going to read all this because you can see this is a big update. If you are using Start9 Labs, update your node, guys. I've heard really good things about Start9 Labs. I'd like to, to play with one. Anyways, go listen to us on the Apple Podcast, on Spotify, on Anchor, and we are on Anchor app. If If you are in the value for value economy and you think we're providing you value day in and day out, stream us some sats. We appreciate it. Anyways, Nico, we ran extra long today, so let's roll this one out.
Yeah,
Sorry.
guys, make sure to join. No, it's not your fault. Make sure to
Okay.
join our. It's just good conversation. Make sure to join our Telegram group. The link is down below. We always put it down below. Also, want to give a very special shout out to our awesome sponsor, RepresentLTD.com. They make some of the most comfortable Bitcoin merch, like this awesome hoodie, like the shirt that Opti's wearing. He makes Bitcoin merch. He's making Simply Bitcoin merch. Definitely want to go check out representltd.com, and you can take advantage of the promo code down below to get 10% off representltd.com. I also want to give a very special shout out to our awesome guest, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us today. You had some
Thank you
awesome
for
takes,
inviting me.
brother. This is why I said in the
Appreciate
very
it.
beginning, I love inviting plebs that are unknown, because they are always going to say different things that you've never heard before, right? And that's what this is all about. This is revolution
That's right.
for everybody. So, Alex, where
I'm a
can
news junkie.
where
So,
can people find you?
So at AK Kaufman, it's my middle initial is K on Twitter. I basically, during the pandemic, took my account and followed a fixed number of accounts, although I rotate them. If I'm following you, so I'm putting you on rotation, basically, with 44 follows. And then I basically retweet kind of obsessively just a lot of different content and pin different things that are related to kind of my belief that you have to denominate in sats, watch certain markets denominated in sats, like the silver market, I think is interesting signal. So I pinned that picture from the XE currency app a lot of times as my pinned tweet. I'm also working with Satoshi's Journal right now, and a few other companies in a sales and marketing capacity. My wife's employer, Martian Craft, is a great iPhone app development company. My dad's company is Parallax Financial Research, which does amazing forecasting work in traditional markets, TradFi, and has its tools on Bloomberg. So basically, I just consume a lot of news, retweet a lot of news, and really excited about Bitcoin and excited about libertarian politics. So
Hell yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to put you backstage.
Thanks for having me.
Let me wrap it up. Guys, that was another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. It ran a little bit long today. I know, just the conversation was so good. The sauce was so good. Things were flying all over the place. Opti's camera turned off. My power went out because I'm in Puerto Rico, but we still kept the show going. We tried to bring you the signal, not the noise. Guys, it really helps us tremendously if you enjoyed this show. If you feel it gave you value, definitely hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that like button. And we will see you tomorrow, guys, for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin.
Which one's the best crypto asset?